exciting.
Hey, Marco. I didn't know you came from a chrysalis.
Well, actually, I don't. But I wanted to get a real feel for life science. It gets awfully cramped in here.
Tell me about it.
Hey, Marco. Could you help me review for my life science test?
Sure, Kevin. Oh, this is Bailey. She just happens to be an expert in life science.
I sure am.
All right, this'll be fun.
Off we go to my super science station.
Whoa, Marco. You have...
Were you saying something?
Never mind.
Let me tell you, Kevin, there's a whole world of information about life science.
I know. I'm not even sure where to begin.
Well, I like to start at the Plant Learning Center.
Tell us what you know about plants, Kevin.
Well, some examples of plants are trees, shrubs, vines, grasses, and flowering plants. And plants can produce their own food.
They sure can. But do you know how plants make their food?
My teacher says plants need water, air, light, and nutrients.
That's right. The leaves of plants contain a colored pigment called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll makes plants appear green and helps them absorb the energy from sunlight for a process called photosynthesis.
In photosynthesis, plants use energy from the sun to convert carbon dioxide from the air, along with water and nutrients from the soil, into glucose and oxygen. Glucose is a sugar used as food for the plant, and oxygen is given off as a waste product.
Plants may not need oxygen, but we sure do. Isn't oxygen what we breathe?
You bet your sweet lungs it is. You breathe in what the plants put out.
Okay, boys. Let's talk about the parts of plants. Many plants have 6 basic parts: roots, stems, leaves, flowers, fruits, and seeds.
I like the roots because they provide support for the plant by anchoring it into the ground.
The roots also absorb water and nutrients from the soil, which the plant needs to grow.
And did you know that the roots can store sugar and carbohydrates for the plant to use for food?
Cool! So the roots are used to support the plant, gather water and nutrients, and store the food that the plant makes.
The primary root grows first and is the thickest. It grows downwards. Secondary roots grow out from the primary root in many directions.
On this plant, notice that the secondary roots are not as thick as the primary roots.
And these tiny little roots that cover the other roots are called root hairs. They maximize water and nutrient absorption from the soil.
Now let's look at what stems from the roots are. Above the ground, stems and branches support the leaves and flowers of the plant. The branches help the leaves reach the sunlight they need.
For photosynthesis?
Good, you're paying attention. The stems also contain special tubes made of cells called xylem cells and phloem cells. Xylem cells draw water and minerals up from the roots to upper sections of the plant's body, like the leaves. Phloem cells transport glucose throughout the plant to give it energy to grow and reproduce. If the plants don't need the sugar right away, they convert it to starch for long-term storage in the roots.
Look! It's Robert Plant! I want to get his autograph!
Hey kids, let me tell you my experience with xylem and phloem. They are kind of like the circulatory system of the plant. When someone chops down a dead tree, those rings are what's left of old xylem cells. And if you ever see sap dripping from a tree, that sap usually comes from the phloem.
I never knew that! Hey, Mr. Plant, will you sing for us before you go?
I couldn't, really.
Please?
Well, all right then. Perhaps just a bit.
skinnier and taller than
Xylem cells breathe water, and minerals plant seeds. Cells bubbles around to give plants energy.
You were in your tissues?
Thanks, Mr. Plant. That was awesome. Although that last part didn't make a lot of sense.
Whatever. Glad you liked it, kid. Now, I really have to leave. Did you hear that? Did you hear what I said? Leave! You guys should talk about the leaves of plants. Cheerio!
Cheerio.
The leaves are one of the most important parts of a plant.
Because they make food for the whole plant.
Exactly. And we get 98% of the oxygen and undeniable for photosynthesis. Most of that comes from algae and marine plants.
Wow. Now let's see. Where were we? We've covered the roots, the stems, and the leaves. What about the flowers?
Flowers aren't just pretty things to look at, you know. They are very important because they help the plant to make seeds. Let's take a closer look at a flower. First, check out this bud. See the tiny green leaf-like parts around the bud? Those are called sepals. They help to protect the bud as it develops.
As the flower opens, the petals become the main attraction. You get it? They're the main attraction because they help attract pollinators such as bees, bats, birds, and even butterflies.
I know how this works. Pollinators come to the flowers. As they move around the flowers, they pick up pollen that is on the anther, which is the top part of the stamen. The anthers are held up by these long stalks called filaments. As the pollinators move around, some of the pollen gets on the animal. It can be moved to another flower or the same flower until it gets stuck to the top of the pistil, which is called the stigma. The sticky stigma is usually found in the center of the flower. The pollen then travels down a long tube called the style all the way to the ovary. The ovary contains female egg cells called ovules. The pollen fertilizes the ovules and they become seeds. The ovaries become the fruit.
Wow! Where did you learn all of that?
I was helping my grandpa pick peaches off his trees, and I asked him how a peach was made.
Your grandpa knew what he was talking about. The fruit is the ripened ovary of a plant containing the seeds. After fertilization, the ovary swells. Ovaries can become soft, like on the peaches you picked. But sometimes ovaries dry and harden to protect the developing seeds, like a walnut or a pecan.
Some fruits even help seeds spread by letting them travel on the wind, like the propeller-shaped wings on the maple tree seeds, or white dandelion fluff.
Hey, learning about plants can be a breeze.
Other seeds attach themselves to an animal's fur or human's clothing and end up moving far away from the parent plant.
I can see how that would happen.
And animals sometimes swallow seeds when they eat the fruit. Some seed coats are strong enough to pass all the way through an animal's digestive tract, so the seed is deposited along with fertilizer from the animal. If you know what I mean.
Ew.
Every seed is a tiny plant ready to grow called an embryo, and it has already formed leaves, a stem, and root pods. The seed is just waiting for the right conditions to make it germinate and grow.
And then the whole cycle of growing, producing food, pollination, and seed production can start all over again. Hey, what's happening?
Well, find your shirt. In your mom's shirt.
Whoa! Some people ride motorcycles, but we got to ride a life cycle.
We sure did. But plants aren't the only organisms that have life cycles.
That's the truth. Just look at this. And the life cycle of all butterflies. See? This is a picture of me as a wee little egg.
How can you tell which one is yours?
Why, it's the prettiest one, of course. And this is me as a newly hatched caterpillar. Aren't I cute?
That's just marvelous.
Huh?
I mean, marvelous.
She's making a play on words, Kevin. Larva is the second stage of development in the life cycle of a butterfly. That's when we're in a caterpillar form. During the larval stage, we eat. A lot. Then, when our skin gets too tight, we molt, or shed our outer skin, and repeat the process until we become nice and plump.
Oh, yes. See how big she is in this picture? That's what she looked like just before she became a pupa. A pupil? You mean a student?
No, silly. He said pupa. That's the third stage, where caterpillars are enclosed in a chrysalis. Inside the chrysalis, we complete our metamorphosis.
That means she transformed from an awkward caterpillar
Into
a beautiful butterfly.
Butterfly?
Well, I guess I do like the way I turned out. The pupa stage is where I got my exoskeleton and my wings.
Exo what?
Exoskeleton. It means having a skeleton outside.
So let me get this straight. As a butterfly, you start as an egg.
Characteristics of an animal group, and you tell me if that is the group you belong to. All of the animals in this group have an exoskeleton. They have segmented bodies and jointed legs.
Oh, yeah?
All of them are cold-blooded.
The body temperature of a cold-blooded animal is dependent on the temperature of its environment.
Do you belong to this group?
No, the ranch is good.
No, I don't have an exoskeleton.
But I do.
That group of animals is called arthropods.
Arthropods.
And that includes butterflies.
Okay, second round.
I'm sorry, did Grandma puppy to you or something new?
I don't have feathers, wings, or a beak.
Neil, did Grandma puppy to you like you dropped
That
that
group of
card?
animals is called birds.
Birds.
Now I think you're ready for a real challenge.
I'm ready.
All of the animals from this group are warm-blooded vertebrates. They breathe
You
air
beat me,
and
huh?
have
Yeah.
hair or fur.
I
Most
love
of the
you, Mama.
animals in this group are
How you
born
beat me,
alive,
huh?
not hatched
Good.
from an egg. And the
I heard you
mothers
got
produce
monster dolls.
after
How many
birth
did you get?
to
2 or 3?
offspring.
3.
All of
3?
these
Oh,
animals
no way.
have 3
You
million
got
bones
3.
and a
Monster
4-chambered
second.
heart in their circulatory system. Do you belong to this group?
Okay, with ranch.
No, I'm saying it's the
That's
youngster.
it. That's the group
Oh,
I
yeah,
belong
what?
to.
You are a mammal.
Yeah, youngster height.
We have a
No, it's the
winner.
youngster.
A winner? What do I win? What do I
No,
win?
the plebe. It's the plebe at your house. Christian.
Oh, it's a baby. Yeah.
Oh, I get it.
I know, Daddy told me. I said, ¿sabes qué? Lo que está pasando es que cada cosa que usted anda mirando, mi hija tiene que cambiar de español.
Just change it back.
Yeah. Oh, Tom's change it back? I go, I don't know.
We'll keep the car for you until you get your license. We're off to the Cellular Learning Center.
Okay. But where is it? I don't see a door.
Well, take a closer look.
I think I may have a little problem with that.
Yeah, you cast it.
How sweet.
That's really small. Microscopic even.
Here at the Cellular Learning Center, we're going to learn about plant animal cells. And you might be surprised that there are more similarities than differences between them. Your cells share many features with
Okay,
plant
see, I didn't
cells.
know that. Trust me with you know, that thing. Now we even
We
you
do need to size things
you know
up.
that
Yeah, right. Here we go.
the thing so I could get my Alexa.
Yeah, the Alexa, yeah.
And because he will have to get up or yeah, I
It
said
sure doesn't. This ecosystem
Yeah, 'cause,
is way out of
yeah,
balance.
like a month ago.
The kids know how to do that shit.
Yeah, no, and they,
So I don't mind whatever. It's
I don't either. But see, I didn't know that I do that. You told me the last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Spanish, but you telling me now. how
The
to change the
Ecosystem Learning
that to
Center.
English. That's all.
Its ecosystem is a
No, we
living
don't mind whatever.
computer
You know, if you want to watch it,
on
whatever.
Because he's
each of its
watching
living
for
members,
you.
as well as
Every time
things
I
like
come back to
temperature,
English,
water
and
availability,
I put the
and the
TV on for
richness
night
of the
TV.
soil.
There it is, Mom, Dad,
Ecosystems
you know.
vary in
So yeah,
size.
watching
They can be as
On
small
Netflix,
as a
yes,
puddle
yeah.
or as large
So
as the Earth
yeah, no
itself.
problem.
And then I will hit that.
Within each
Because
Shit, Monica's
ecosystem,
friend
there
was
are
Hazel.
habitats,
She showed
which
me
may
the home.
also
The
vary
little
in
house
size.
was
Yeah,
A habitat is
she's
a
the
place
one
where a
that probably showed me
population lives.
Mark.
And even Monica, her friends all have my fucking passport
Organisms of
too.
the same
I was like, I'm gonna
type
start collecting a pot. I go, shit.
at the same time. The habitat must supply the needs of the organism, such
Monday.
as food, water, temperature, oxygen,
Oh, you got the other one.
If the population needs are met, it will try to move to a better habitat.
Every organism in an ecosystem has an important part to play in the community. A food chain shows the feeding relationship from one organism to the next, and to the next, and to the next in an ecosystem. The arrows in the food chain show how the energy from one organism is.
That were in those organisms go back into the soil for the plants to use.
I understand. So it's almost like a cycle.
Yes, but actually food chains are a bit oversimplified as to what really happens in nature. The food chain only shows one pathway for the energy to be transferred between organisms. Most consumers feed on several species.
These interconnected food chains form a food web. Take a look at this food web. Some animals, like humans, may even eat plants and animals. Organisms that eat both plants and animals are called omnivores.
Can you tell which of the animals in this food web are omnivores?
Let's see. Something that eats both plants and...
The direction of the flow of energy. So the arrows point away from what is being eaten.
The producers are the pine tree, the algae, the grass, and the huckleberry bushes. So the only animal I see that eats from the producers and other consumers is the grizzly bear.
Things can change in a habitat or in the population itself that will negatively affect the numbers of the population.
Like what?
Extreme weather, diseases, pollution, overfishing, overhunting, or even introducing a new population of animals. Any of these can have a big effect on populations in an ecosystem.
Nature is usually pretty good at balancing things over time.
I can see that. Everything in the ecosystem is connected. And because they all depend on each other, a balance is maintained.
You got it. But if several of those factors change all at once, and the wildlife population cannot find a new habitat suitable for them, they can become endangered, or even extinct.
But sometimes when the environment changes, the animal populations are able to keep up through genetic adaptation. Let me tell you a story about a type of moth that lived in England. Originally, most of the peppered moths were light-colored because the trees that they rested on had light bark and lichens.
So they had good camouflage.
Exactly. A few here and there were darker, but then people in England built factories that put out a lot of pollution. Eventually, the tree bark turned dark from the soot.
Uh-oh! Fortunately, a few of the moths in the population had genes which made them a little darker, but they were still able to hide from the birds.
Over time, most of the peppered moths got darker and darker because it was easier for the dark peppered moths to survive on the soot-covered trees. One day, the British people decided they didn't like the pollution, and they started cleaning up the way they ran the factories. The tree bark once again became lighter and lighter.
I'll bet the moth population changed back over time, too.
You catch on fast, Kevin. The peppered moth population was able to survive because they had a range of genes that produced different colors of wings. So there were always some that could survive. If the bark was light, the lighter ones survived to have offspring. If the bark was dark, the darker ones survived to have offspring.
In other words, the genetic traits that work the best for animals in certain habitats get passed on from generation to generation since they survive.
And if the environment or habitat changes, then the traits that work best are those that surviving animals will have.
Sometimes people select the genetic traits of animals they want.
Huh? How do they do that?
Look at some of the different dog breeds available.
Animals to have certain characteristics could be really beneficial for people.
You betcha! All living populations can adapt genetically. These genetic changes can be affected by the environment or by people.
I guess that about wraps things up.
Yep, I'm ready for my life science test now.
Bye-bye for now.
Good luck on your test!
Whoa, I guess Marco really did wrap things up.